Hey, today I'm going to be joined by Mr. Cory Crelan. Did I get that right?
You pronounced it right. Yeah, thanks.
Man, I'm 5 for 5. That's like, I got a streak going. You're the fifth guy I got right. So, Cory, you're up in Connecticut now, right?
I'm right on I-95. I'm about an hour train ride from Grand Central.
Right. You would be, so before you and I were speaking, you were mentioning the fact that it might snow up there.
Yeah, today's definitely going to be first snow of the winter, I guess. It's not fall anymore, it's winter.
All right. So you're basically telling me I bailed just in time.
100%. Yeah, you want no one no one in Metro New York was teeing it up today. I
There
can I
you
can
go.
assure you of that. No
Uh,
matter how hardy people claim to be.
That's good, Cory. So why don't you start by giving us a little bit of your background so we can get to know you a little bit, and then we'll get into some more details.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I feel like, and when you talk about like dogs and cats and, like 1 year translates into like 11 years, I feel like I've been around golf so long that, I'm 52 years old, but I feel like I'm like in golf years. So when I was younger, I was about 7 years old. My parents moved right next to a municipal golf course up in Western Mass. So I was like literally from our driveway to the 11th hole at Chicopee Country Club was a
Wow.
sand wedge away. So,
Now hold on.
I
Chicopee would be the Kennedy's Country Club, right? Am I right?
no,
No?
definitely. This is just Western Mass,
Yeah,
unless they were.
I thought I remembered something with about JFK and Chicopee. Maybe.
No, that's out in like Hyannisport.
Wait,
The
wait,
one
wait, wait,
thing
wait.
that
Yeah.
that people would recognize Chicopee for is it's the town where Spalding was located.
Okay, so maybe that's my mistake, or maybe. And then there's a
Yeah, that's kind of its claim.
Ted Kennedy incident, which was on a
No,
oh,
that's Chappaquiddick.
Chappaquiddick. Okay, so maybe that's where this whole thing is getting. Chicopee, Mass, is where Spalding was. Chappaquiddick was where Ted Kennedy had this swimming situation. Anyway,
Totally different deal. Yeah, different part of the state.
let's go forward. Sorry.
But yeah, no. So I mean, I grew up like literally on a golf course, playing golf, competing as a junior, working, parking carts. I ended up going to college. I was a Francis Ouimet Caddy scholar from
Wow.
working, my time working at the country club, from when I was, 10 years old. And so I went to school at Ferris State University, where they were one of at the time, it was only one of four universities that were accredited with the PGA of America. So I have a marketing degree, but also did um, 3 6 month internships throughout college. And when I continued on after graduating, there was kind of like a shortcut to become like a full PGA member. So I worked in the Metro New York area for about 11 years as an assistant pro. You probably heard of Ardsley Country Clubs over, it's kind of adjacent in the same sort of like of the Hudson as Sleepy Hollow, but a little bit further south. Scarsdale Golf Club's another, well over 1895. And I worked out on Martha's Vineyard, um, at this brand new club at the time called the Vineyard Golf Club. That was like in the early 2000s. And actually, I heard you a number of times reference Deepdale in, as far as Dale Kestner and all that. And the last club I worked at before getting out of working as a club pro was next door at Fresh Meadow.
Okay. I saw I'm going, Daryl,
Yeah, so I
Daryl.
got out of working as a club pro, and I worked for about 16 years in apparel sales, and I've subsequently switched companies, and I think it's been about 5 years now, maybe actually could possibly be longer, where I kind of was, I feel like I've been in golf. I was racking my brain all these years, like what can I do for myself? How can I have my own business and not have, someone tell me what to do, how to do it, everything like that. And, consider myself a smart person. And I was like, there's gotta be something that I can do. And, I stumbled upon kind of retro golf by almost by accident. I My dad had passed away, and largely we got rid of all of his extra golf equipment. My mom was moving. I had to kind of grab all the stuff from her. And basically, the only thing that I sort of kept was I had some refinished persimmon woods, and I had his set of like 1981 Apex 2 cameo irons that he bought brand new back then. So I basically just kind of put together this older set of clubs and said, I should probably go out and play with them sometime. Eventually, I did. I went and played a 9-hole course, really cool place. I'd read a book on 9-holers by Anthony Pioppi. He's kind of like the foremost guy on 9-hole golf courses. Went up to Hotchkiss, which is kind of like in architecture circles. I think it was like Charles Banks. One of the Rayner disciples worked there as a
CB,
professor
CB,
and
McDonald,
designed
Charles
that
Blair.
course.
Can you hear me?
I went,
Can you hear me?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So I played the Hotchkiss school course, and I had a good time. The only thing is when particular driver that I had just didn't work at all. I like hooked everyone. I tried no matter what, like it just didn't cooperate with my swing. So when I got home, I just started like digging around on eBay, just kind of searching, uh, you know, McGregor, old sort of, you know, vintage sort of brands that I remembered from playing as a kid. And kind of the further I got along, I was sort of like perplexed because I was looking at all these listings and looking at things that I thought would have been fairly valuable, and they were selling for basically nothing. And I kind of thought that I was like searching using the wrong terms or the brands, or, maybe it was just Spalding or Wilson or whatever. But no matter what I searched for, they were all like criminally cheap. And shortly thereafter, I picked up a Facebook marketplace listing that was, of all places, like in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. A guy he just had like a lot of pictures, and it looked like something that would be interesting to me. And he had them listed for a very long time, and basically said, you got to take all these clubs. And it turns out that his father-in-law had passed away. So I packed up my car, uh, drove down to the Lower East Side, which is not, not the golf mecca
Yeah.
of the universe. I picked up this collection of clubs there, and that was like the first thing. I probably got, I don't know, probably 40, 50 persimmon woods. I think it was probably 35 sets of vintage blades. This guy had to have loved like blade style 8802 putters. There was every iteration of those like known to man. And I picked up all these clubs for the princely price of $200. And I clearly had no, at that point, I was just kind of like, this is cool. I got it home, and I just said, in my mind, anytime that something gets like that cheap, then there's only one way to go, and that's up, and there's opportunity to do something. And I kind of, thought about it for a while and just said, well, what if I could kind of assemble like 100 sets of clubs that are like these, where people could go out and play with woods, with blade irons, and basically just kind of like draw the line in the sand and say no metal woods, had to be, persimmon laminate, and it had to be blade irons, all forged stuff, all made in the USA. And that kind of set me off. And then, I kind of have like a hidden talent of just being really good at buying and selling things. And throughout time, I bought up a number of large collections, and I met my goal. I came up with a logo. I worked in that sort of space, so that was relatively easy to do. If you've ever been to the Oyster Bar in Grand Central,
Sure.
it's like classic classics. The retro golf logo is kind of like an homage to that logo there. It's in that sort of old school sort of style, which I think is super cool, very fun, very different from what you see in normal country club logos. And yeah, so it was like the good news was I kind of had all these clubs. I got them together, and at that point, I had all this stuff together, and then basically I had to do just like an absolute massive amount of just basic like maintenance, club repair. One winter I probably regripped the better part of like 1,500 clubs.
Wow.
I got some Scotch-Brite pads, kind of cleaned up the irons, paint filled everything. Just like killed my elbow, just like hacking off, dry rotted Green Victory grips that were, you know, 20 years past their expiration date. And yeah, so I mean, I was just like it was that around that was like kind of COVID time. So it was like I worked my day job. I would go over to this garage that I had rented, work like an hour or two every night. And I did that for like probably the better part of 2 years, and just started posting on Instagram. And, I think I kind of was a little cagey about what necessarily I was doing with the stuff. Like anyone that was really paying attention could just see the quantity of clubs that I had. And that in itself was just kind of like a show of force that
It's definitely the wow effect. The wow effect, you definitely had that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so now, now all at this point in time, like all the heavy lifting is done, and essentially I'm just kind of like the Pied Piper, and trying basically to shine a light on this era of clubs that, in my opinion, is just largely just being polite. I would say that it's just overlooked. And, you, you I could say like much more stronger opinions than that, but
Sure.
I think it's no one would argue that it's overlooked. And also just essentially trying to separate the eras of golf equipment, and that, oftentimes I have to sort of tell people that what I'm doing is not Hickory. Uh, You know, Hickory is 1935, but there's, a good 60 years of time post Hickory, and that is essentially what I have now. In the broad sense of the word, they're both old clubs. I get that. Like,
Right.
but I'm essentially saying like, yes, my clubs are old, but the same way that like a 1980 Corvette is a lot different than
A
a
Model T.
1920 Ford Model T, and essentially all that I've done is put together sets of clubs that I would have used as a kid, and I don't have anything against the Ford Model T, but that isn't what I drove in high school. So
Right.
it's not relevant to my interests. And I just find it surprising that the era of clubs sort of languish, even though, the typical country club member is in their on the low side 40s, 50s, 60s. This is all like right in the wheelhouse of when they were, if you played as a junior.
Well, so go back to Fresh Meadows. So I was
Yeah,
there
great course.
in the Met PGA Championship one year, and I was there watching.
I
Well,
played in that.
okay, so I was there
It was
watching.
I mean, that was like in the 90s.
Yes, yes, late '90s. So I was there and I'm watching Darrell and Rick Hartman, the late Rick Hartman, who just
Yeah,
died
I
this year.
played with Rick in an event.
Yeah,
Really strong player.
Rick looked like the model golf swing. You know what I mean?
Yep,
Like, he
he
looked
won
like
the Met Open. Yeah.
computer generated model. He was perfect. And Darrell's next to him making his thuddy noises, right? And I said to myself, if somebody didn't know, you'd have to say that Rick had to give Darrell 5 aside just just on the range, right? Go up to the first hole. Rick hits the greens about 10 feet. Darrell is 44, 45 feet away. He drains it. And then he
No, I
just
was
keeps
gonna
going.
say, yeah. I mean, he could give him 5, but on the greens, he would just wipe Rick's,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. And I'm from the Lower East Side, Manhattan. Oh,
Okay.
I'm from the real, the hard,
Yeah, no,
Delancey,
I'm
Allen.
very
Grew
very
up in
familiar with that.
Livernois.
I love,
Yeah.
that era of, graffiti art.
Yeah, graffiti art. That no, that's more gentrified now, so it's more like yuppies and stuff paying
Yeah,
paying a fortune for cold water walk-ups. So I
yeah,
remember I would visit my friends, and they had like this is like, early Ellis Island apartments. So 4 apartments, 1 bathroom, and everybody had their own key, and each apartment had to take their own toilet paper. The bathtub would be in the sink, and people paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month for this stuff. I'm sure they really.
yeah. I've actually weird sort of aside, I've got a leather Mackenzie Jones bag that has been tagged up by the artist named LA2 who collaborated with Keith Haring and basically taught
Okay.
Keith Haring how to, the whole he was kind of his entree into
Well,
all
see,
the,
okay,
all
perfect.
the sort of street painting at that time is probably like the coolest thing that I have.
That's interesting.
I'm friends with him and was able to convince him to like, you know, make an art piece out of my golf bag.
That's awesome. I knew Keith Haring. He was down the block from my father's restaurant, and
Yeah, well, I mean,
his originally
LA2 Angel, he started working with him when he was like 13 years old.
what was his name? LAT?
LA2, if you look at a number of he probably created 500 pieces with Keith Haring.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember Haring.
You see his tag in their work. Essentially, like Keith Haring, when he started, he had like all the figures and
Figures in chalk
Angel,
on
yeah, he
the
would kind of Angel would essentially do all the infill of their work.
okay. I didn't realize that.
Like when they started working together, it completely exploded
Yeah,
and he
so
became
the best
renowned.
he used to have one of the best parties I ever attended was at the Palladium, which is no longer there.
Yeah,
It was Keith
that's
Haring's
where
Keith
that's
Haring's annual
legit.
party of life. I still had the tank top with all the globe and all the little babies and, all the figures. It was cool. So, yeah.
Oh,
Now
awesome. What a
now
time to be alive then.
on the retro things, I'm not unlike you. I started golf later on after other sports. Well, I'm 24, 25 when I first learned how to play, and I learned that on a par 3 in Flushing Meadow, right behind
Mhm.
North Mirage Stadium.
Yep.
They play the US Open. Anyway, so, I graduate from a sandwich and a putter to something, I think a Patty Berg set of women's irons. So I didn't know anything, these women blades, right? So we start playing regular golf, like on a regular golf course. My buddy says, "Hey, we gotta get some real clubs." So I go to the Penny Saver, and there's a guy in Brooklyn named Sal. So Sal, Brooklyn, I imagine the guy's Italian. We go ahead, and I go, and he had these clubs listed. Now I didn't, so they were power built advanced player series, great cavity back irons, full set, all the woods, a staff bag, shoes, and this whole 9 yards. And it
What
was,
was it? The orange bag?
huh? Sorry?
The orange colored bag?
No, it was just a brown staff bag. No, it wasn't the power
Not the
built
power
orange.
built one.
It was just a brown, big, giant staff bag. Right. So, okay, cool. So these clubs are great. Now I go, I become friends with him. Right. So he's like in his 80s. Right. So he goes down to Florida in the winter. So I decided I was going to go to Florida, not because of him, but I just was going to Florida because it was cold, because it was like it is what it is now, right? So I get down there, I reach out to him, and I call him. He says, "Yeah, let's meet at the golf club in Miami." And was it the golf club? Well, he had his cart with him, his golf cart. It was like a Rolls Royce grill, right? So
Okay.
shake his head. Got an Italian horn, a pinky ring, right? Meanwhile, Sal is Jewish. One of those New York things where you become a product of your environment. So he grew up in
Of course. Just
Bensonhurst.
assimilate. Yeah.
He probably he calls himself Sal, whatever. Turns out he's working the obituaries. So he was going to the obituaries, right? To find out which one of his golf buddies died or somebody he knew died. Go to the widow, make her an offer, and sell him in New York. Sounds funny. Why would you throw in a pair of used shoes with the gloves? Now, and it all started adding up. But
Jeez.
so similar to your story with
Yeah, well, I mean, someone that finds my obituary is gonna, strike gold
exactly right.
my wife will offload that stuff
Yeah,
for probably
you're not
a loaf of bread.
you're not too far behind. I'm not too far behind you. I probably have 13, 14 sets of clubs. But anyway, so now that you have accumulated this inventory, right? What's next? What do you do?
So essentially, like I said, work in sales, I have got, if nothing else, I've got a massive sort of network of club pros that I've kind of dealt with at various points in time, and then I'm still utilizing today in my day job, and essentially kind of just cast the net and from basically New England, Metro New York, PA, down to like mid Atlantic to Virginia. So I basically message out about roughly 1,000 club pros and just kind of offer up the clubs in various ways where we can basically host a themed member event where everyone can play with the the clubs that I have. And it's basically like the same way that like a vinyl record is a more of a tactile experience or analog experience than kind of just hitting play on your phone or something like that. And that's basically what I'm sort of offering, in that a lot of these clubs, like even places where I worked, 100 years old places have a ton of history in this area. And and from the point of view that I am very well versed in this sort of private club world, and it's become increasingly difficult to sort of offer people things that they haven't seen or done before many times over. It's like if you're playing in a member guest at Deepdale, you know, coming up with an original idea of seeing, everyone travels, everyone has the internet, everyone sees and knows what their friends are doing. So I'm not really trying to like evangelize people and say, hey, like you must play with, this is the only way to do it. That's not it. I'm just offering up something that is historical, that is relevant to, a long period of time at these people's clubs. And just kind of do something different and do something that there's not really one way to do it. You can do it, you can play 18 holes, you can play 9 holes. A lot of times it's been easier to offer like a 3-hole loop where you kind of start and end somewhere close to the clubhouse where they're having a cocktail party or something like that, and doing it in conjunction with an existing event. Because post COVID, any of these clubs that maybe prior to COVID didn't used to be all that busy of a place, well, that really largely doesn't exist anymore, and everywhere is sort of busy and everyone's event calendar is really busy. So I've kind of just, there's it's, unless it's like you're celebrating some sort of a centennial or something like that, a lot of time, very often it's much easier ask to kind of do something in with an event that's existing. The logistics of coming and going are easier, or potentially I can, things like, if there's really not a great way to ship a lot of clubs, so therefore I have to kind of drive them. So that's why I'm not reaching out to clubs in Arizona or someplace like that. So yeah. And I've had doing, even just doing like contests with an existing event with, I sent some clubs down to a really premier place that held a tour event in Maryland, and like sending 1-irons to people, like that's just something that people don't have any recent memory of doing, or sending having long drive contests with persimmon woods, or these putters that I have. Like, if you showed someone, a teenager or someone like that, like a 1986 Nicholas Response, like it just are like, what in the hell is this? Yeah. So it's nothing that is terribly, terribly serious, but kind of along those lines, I've kind of underestimated the sort of lack of awareness surrounding the entire era of clubs. So I've kind of had to become like kind of the de facto online sort of Pied Piper of persimmon and blades. So therefore I know everyone that refinishes clubs, that makes new persimmon woods. I'm kind of connected with our mutual friend John Erickson. And
Are
you know,
are you near Domain? Have you been to Domain?
yeah, I definitely have. That's a really he has some they used to make woodwoods there.
His dad was the guy they would stop. I mean, he's wound persimmons for Nelson Hogan and all those people when they were.
Yeah, or there's the local shop. I'm blanking on the name of it. That's down the street from Marion. That shoot, I can't remember the name of it, but they're a local Philly area club. They're still in existence, but they're not making persimmons anymore. But they like used to make PGA Tour players persimmons. Of course, I can't remember the
Yeah, it
name.
always happens. That's part of the.
Easy to look up
Yeah,
in Ardmore.
yeah. Now, so one thing is we have a nostalgic attachment and a nostalgic memory of things, right? So when I look at some of the things that I coveted, right, my life, and I go to eBay and I see they're worthless, I start to take it personal. What happened? This thing was like, the and and I think also we've had another spike in golf, and now that you were in the golf industry, you remember Tiger was one giant spike, right? I rode that wave for a while, and now COVID is another spike in terms of new people. Okay, so what that's doing is diluting the memories of what it was like to play, even a balata ball, or even a Titleist professional. That doesn't seem that vintage to me, yet it is.
Yeah,
And they have no idea what I'm talking about, but that was like yesterday. And like you said, you feel like you've been in golf 120 years, so you've watched a lot of these changes. So you're fighting an uphill battle technically because you have a whole influx of people, large golf population that has no idea what you know what I mean? It is
I mean, I think you've kind of like understated the task that I have at hand. I mean, I'm like literally, I feel like, I've got like an umbrella in like 100-mile-an-hour wind. Like
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there certainly is, like I said, I mentioned people that are making new persimmons, and it's kind of, I think the best way that I could describe it right now is it's very much like an underground thing. But I think just what it's lacking is in that, 52-year-old Corey with fairly rudimentary social media skills. Like, I don't have the ability to do that myself, but I think the opportunity is there to get the message out. It's just, I think it just has to happen with younger people, and or like, I guarantee if I were to, film a breaking 50 with Bryson DeChambeau, where we both played persimmon and blades, like the there's no one with a massive audience that's necessarily talking about it. So I think that really the only sort of ingredient that is missing is just amplifying the message to, where a lot of these younger people are, you know, there's us, there's no persimmon influencers, I guess would be the
There
easiest
you go.
way
That's
to,
all. 1 second.
being polite about it. So
I have I kinda have the opposite problem of you right now, so let me hit this air conditioner. Sorry, I have to point that out, but
yeah, so
you're I mean,
so
you're
I think I
absolutely
think
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think there is potential to do it, but I think, it's not going to come from the Hickory crowd who is very much in their own sort of world. It has to come from young people. And you know, I'm not young. And someone all it's going to take is, I saw a post recently by Next Round Golf that sells secondhand equipment. They take trade-ins at clubs, or I think no, it was originally about My Golf Spy. Was like if you could create a golf brand from scratch and could offer affordable clubs and everything like this, and you know, it's all the clubs that I have. Like, granted, I'm very good. I bought in large quantities, but you don't even have to have like any sort of aptitude for buying and selling clubs. You can get into these clubs for, I would sell you a set of clubs like all day long, the run of the mill set for $250. And like that, like, you know, if you, in relation to modern clubs, like that just doesn't exist. Like a basic ping answer style putter would run over $200
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
So, that's the
Right.
other sort of aspect of this is that I'm not trying to spike the resale of the clubs that I have. I'm just trying to get more people aware of an option that, in my view, is almost like hidden in plain sight.
I think that it's an option, and it's actually a good option for beginners, right? If you can
Sure.
learn how to play with persimmon blades, right? What can't you hit?
Yeah. I mean, I've done these events and I have tried to get feedback from people, and people, I mean, I think no one has massive expectations that they're going to, that you're doing an apples to apples comparison. But I've gotten great feedback that, people have, I'm like, did you find them impossible to play? No, no, I hit a lot of good shots. And it's just like the same way that, that 1980 Corvette has, came, I think it probably had 190 horsepower. 2025 Corvette has got, probably up to, starting at 500 up to 1,000 horsepower or more. That, that 200 horsepower is plenty for people. You
Sure.
don't have to have the fastest,
Well, you can
car
enjoy
on
a
the block.
round of golf, and it's important that people play the appropriate tees also, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
you don't need 300-yard drives to enjoy golf. I mean,
No.
if you're playing the appropriate tees that match that equipment and your style, you can enjoy it. I mean, just like everything else, you shouldn't put
Yeah, there was an outstanding video, like really the only mainstream golf media outlet that talks with any at all about this era of clubs is the people over at the Fried Egg. And they put up a video on YouTube today, which was great in that it had the pro at, I think it was the Cal Club out in San Francisco, Andy from the Fried Egg, and the club pro from there played one hole, and they played a ball with modern clubs, they played a ball with persimmon and blade, and they played a ball with hickory. And kind of showing how basically on the modern club, they hit a drive, they had roughly 80, 90 yards into the green. They're hitting lob wedges into the par four. And with the other persimmon and blade, I don't think they hit great tee shots, but they were, it was totally different. They were hitting like a mid iron into the green. It was just like fascinating because those guys are such big into like golf architecture and how, you know, they turned a run of the mill 400-yard par four from a drive and a lob wedge into
driving
something
an
where
iron.
people had to, play with different clubs in their bag as opposed to just driving and wedging it all the way
Yeah.
around. Was a great example of showing how potentially how much more interesting a round could be playing with different equipment.
Yeah, and, I mean, I'm looking at even the modern blade, right? The modern golf. I've always played blade, and I'm listening to these people talk, right? So I'm gonna show you. Something here with some of my clubs, right? So here is an MP5, right? That's this is probably one of the easiest clubs I've ever hit. Now here is an MP 221. There's no Pro 221, right? This is like a butter knife. And here's an MP 18, right? Okay. Here's a McGregor CB 92 cavity back.
Yeah, I
This
I have a
club,
set of those. It's like early '90s.
yeah. Out of all four of those, this is by far the cavity back is the hardest club to hit. So my point is that as technology has evolved, right? So even in blade design, you know what I mean? They've found a way to move the masses, the centers of gravity, et cetera, to where a modern blade is a pretty forgiving iron, comparatively
Yeah,
speaking, you know?
sure.
And
Yeah, I mean, there's the kind of like the one McGregor set, the JNP or VIP that you had, kind of like at the tail end of like the '90s. I've got a handful of sets of like Hogan Edge, that JMP VIP, like Wilson Gooseneck.
yeah,
It was kind of just the start of kind of a more forgiving
giving blade.
forged, sort of a forged cavity back type of iron.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, going back, my point is that golf is just a lot easier today than it was, uh, that other era.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be fascinating to see what all is done regarding the golf ball or because they can't just leave the golf ball and not do something with the clubs. So I'll be, you know,
No, feel free. I don't, speak your mind.
yeah, no, I'd be fascinated to see what the net result of that is. But
You know what?
there's,
There's So we go back to the late 90s. USGA is addressing the trampoline effect. Come up with this number that's 0.83. Limit the uh, the the rebound effect on the driver. So 0.83 would have been a titanium, a Big Bertha or whatever. Simmon was 0.79, and 3% or so wasn't that big a gap between playing a steel driver or titanium driver and a persimmon. And when you have R&D, this is USGA does this, and they're still playing the Titleist Professional and the Bellata ball. They didn't account for the Pro V1, right? Once that came out, everything went out the window
yeah,
because
high launch knuckleballs. Yeah.
yeah, high launch knuckleballs, exactly. So but it changes again. It changes the characteristics of classic golf, where you needed spin to play certain shots. You needed, you know what I mean? So it changed the way the game was played. And the architecture now is changing the way the game is played. And all that, in essence, has changed the way the game is taught, right? So now
Oh,
everything is about
100%. I mean, if you, like when this is,
well,
this
that's
is
cool.
my,
That's nice.
um, amazing. And you're looking down at a wood of this size, like you're not swinging as hard as you possibly can. Like that just is not that that thought would never
Cross your
cross
mind.
your mind. It's the skill of driving of any of all the other factors combined. That would be 100% the one that is vastly, vastly different compared to the modern clubs. I mean, there's no, with college, there's no incentive for not swinging as hard as to not generate as much speed as you possibly can. I mean, why
Right.
wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, there's no penalty for missing.
Right.
Where you had bulge and roll and gear effect on your persimmon, right? You could potentially hit that ball off the planet, off the toe, off the heel. I've hit heel shots that gone further. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I when I stand, even myself, and I've I've hit plenty of, percent, but when I get out of the car, there's a course that I love to play up in New Hampshire. And I mean, they have no driving range there. I mean, I get out of the car stone cold, step on the first tee, and I'm looking down at this and I'm just like, man, I'm really like I got the biggest charge when I played in September and when I like cracked the center on my first tee shot. It was like such a relief
Yeah.
that, it's like I might hit the bottom, I might hit the bottom groove of this. Like it could go anywhere. It's it's just totally different mindset. And, and to that end, it's like I think the amount of like satisfaction, I if you're playing sparingly and which I am, the amount of like fun that I get out of like just I mean I played in that was in the latter part of September and I'm telling it to you now like it's December. Like I can remember it like it was 2 seconds ago.
Right.
That's like how memorable a given
Around the golf
shot
course.
is.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a shame that that's, you know, I don't know, it's lost. Will that type of golf return on a mainstream basis? Probably not, right? I think I think right now you're at the point of no return. Uh, I figure that even if they rolled back the ball, it's just they'll just figure out a way to. I mean, you're up against OEMs that are generating $2-3 billion a year or whatever,
Yeah, it's
generating
too
about
too far too far down the road.
and they'll figure out a way to, it's just they have R&D departments that'll, beat that, and it's too bad, but it's what it is. I mean, so the
Yeah, but I mean, even to the one point that you said, like, is the other aspect of this is like, you mentioned kind of all that influx of new golfers, and that I tell you what, like, and I tried to coordinate with you to have you over to Retro
yeah,
Golf headquarters,
we missed each
the
other. Yeah.
garage, which is basically like the equivalent of like a time machine, like walking into like Details bag room
A museum.
in 1980. But I can't. It's hard for me to explain how much fun I have. Just like like someone comes over, it's like, hey, I had like an editor from one of the publications came over and he's like, oh, I used to play with a set of Hogan producers when I was a kid. It was like, oh, here you go. And it's like, just like looking around, like these clubs are genuinely like they look amazing. I mean, like, the club that I've got right here. I mean, like this is like a Newman leather grip that like and it's ribbed. It's not round. So it's like even just like me just
Right.
grabbing that club, like waggling it, it's fun. And I defy anyone to like to make any claim otherwise. And that, there's a lot of this stuff where all of these clubs that I have, like they're just like, looking at art or I don't know, well-designed clothing or whatever it may be. Like these clubs are genuinely just, beautiful.
Yeah.
And,
I'm
and you just don't really see that. Like it largely doesn't exist now.
no, and going back to the architecture and what I grew up. Well, I come up to the range playing the black and some of the Van Cleef courses in New York, the Split Rock, some of the tough golf courses, and the black was the black because it was just because of its design and the low level of maintenance. Okay, so first of all, if you go on the first tee, you're teeing up. There's this sign that said difficult course, blah blah blah. Right? Always a gallery there. Everybody was standing there. So you had a tea time. You had like, it's almost like you were on television, and
Yeah.
you'd be there shaking just to hit your tee shot because you've crossed the line to where the difficult. You've entered a whole nother realm of so
Different threshold.
right, because everybody's trying to see these good players teeing off there. So now you gotta show your mojo. Moreover, you'd go on, you get to the second hole, the dog leg left, we used to hit a 2-iron, and I was watching the U.S. Open that Lucas Glover won there, And
Mhm. Actually, I was very, maybe slightly better than average club pro, but I actually made the cut in the
so
2001 New York State Open at
mhm,
Bethpage Black, which was the year before. It was basically they used it as like a tune-up.
that was the one PJ Cowan won.
I think so, yeah.
PJ Cowan beat Bruce Zabriskie,
Yep,
and
that
PJ
sounds right.
Cowan hit driver lob wedge into 15.
Yeah, I had my dad drive out and I was like, "Dad, you have to see this place." I'm like, it was just unbelievable. I mean, it the rough there was, I mean, it's like a sacrilege what, they cut down the rough
I mean,
for this Ryder
they
Cup or
just
whatever. I mean, like when I played, I mean, if you could find your ball in the rough, you had to wedge it out.
yeah,
You
you played the
couldn't
new
do
black,
anything
not
more
the
than
old black. I don't know what
this was the new.
the USGA one. Okay, so I played the original Tillinghast, and I played them both, obviously. But so that left side of that second hole, it was underbrush, there was thorns, there was everything but the kitchen sink. You hit it in there, forget it. And the whole course was like that, On 15, 16, coming down the tee shot, there was,
Mhm.
that little ditch, drainage ditch, and there was a little patch of like, I don't know what it was, brush or woods or whatever. We called it Jurassic Park. So if you hit your ball in there, you'd find like 37 balls and none of them were yours. The sand was like powdery,
Yeah.
but two tees, 6,600, 6,800. Okay. And it was a very enjoyable golf course. Uh, on 10, or was it 10? I think it's 10. After it might have been 9. We used to hit a 2
Mhm.
iron so that we
Yep.
went to the,
Yeah, it's much longer now.
yeah, I mean, these guys was hitting, couldn't reach the fairway. Like, but anyway, again, that golf course is setting the tone for what's to come. I mean, you got kids coming out, you got kids that are 18 playing the junior AMs, and they're already getting 180-mile-an-hour ball speed, you know, and they're only going to get stronger. And we were talking about, there's a group of us that have been talking about just having um, like a throwback Thursday,
Mhm.
right? Just go out and play, post your scores and all this stuff. And it might materialize. It might materialize. And obviously, I will include you. I mean, you'd be the point man for this. And, starting a forum where guys can talk about all this stuff and, getting some kind of app, whether it's game book or something else, and posting your scores, posting the pictures of your gear, you know what I mean? Buy, sell, trade, all that stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, I
No,
have,
to have like some sort of like a flea market
Mhm.
for golf would be, a very easy thing to do. But, the other aspect of this, Ralph, that kind of like grinds my gears is, you know, there's also when we're talking about like persimmon blade era clubs, like the other aspect, like I just explained that like you can buy them very inexpensively. Once you settle on a set of those clubs that you like, it's also a very modern idea that your clubs are, only last 2 or 3 years, and that once you get a good set of persimmon blades, like, that's it. Like, if they agree with you,
never
there's
moved.
no sort of, like, constant churn of new clubs. Like, whether you play with clubs from the '40s, '50s, '60s, '70s, '80s, like, it's all the same stuff, and that it's drives me crazy. It's like once I've got this set that as long as I continue to play, like I have no reason to change, which is, again, like it's this sort of mass marketing cycle of stuff is just sort of once people kind of take a step back and jump off that sort of train, like it's just very disingenuous and unnecessary.
Right. So hold on, let me just keep getting this. I lost my chain of thought. I'm getting this is ridiculous.
Where's that coffee?
It's an old age thing. Yeah. So, man, I had something in my mind I was going to say, and I lost it. I totally forgot it. I'm just totally like just. I got interrupted by this silly phone call. And yeah, but if so, oh, okay. So when we were talking about getting together, so I'm playing these two courses up in Westchester there, in Saxon Woods and Maplemore, and they're
Yep, right off
WPA.
the Hutch.
Yeah, exactly. So they're WPA courses, and they're right up there in the Tillinghast Triangle, which is Wingfoot, Quaker Ridge, and
Ridge,
Fenway.
Fenway.
Yeah, so they're right behind Quaker Ridge, or same strata. So you have the same kind of rock. So the myth is that those were designed by Tillinghast also. And if you looked at them, you would be, yeah, you're right. This could be a Tillinghast. It probably wasn't, but it's a and so yeah, like those courses like that. There's 6,400 from the tips, and you could pretty much play them accordingly with that era of equipment that you have now, that you're talking about, the blades and
Yeah,
precision.
well, it's you can play them. It's just not as monotonous. You know,
Right.
what fun is it just to play with 4 or 5 clubs in your entire bag?
Yeah, yeah. So you have a tee shot. You're gonna hit 7 iron, hit 6 iron, hit 5 iron. You're gonna get to go through the bag when accordingly the way they were designed. And that's not something you're seeing anymore. Even on these monster courses, you watch the pros and they're just annihilating them.
Thing that has sort of like there really isn't a course out there that is 9,000 yards.
Yeah,
That could really kind of do the equivalent of what we're talking about with the other clubs. I mean, because they kind of plowed under the old international course up in Bolton,
the
Mass.
monster. Which one? The monster in New York?
No, I actually played the Monster. It was a brute of a course.
Yeah, that would
That
be
was that was a big golf course.
7,600 yards in the persimmon era.
Yeah, you could definitely go through some golf balls playing at
Yeah.
that, but it's like in sort of halfway between Worcester and Boston. There was a course that was like 8,000 yards
Okay.
that changed hands a couple times, and then they've kind of like plowed it under and put up like a normal golf course. But it had that sort of recognition for a very long time that it was like the longest course in existence.
Okay. Yeah, the monster was a pretty tough course, and that was a long. Yeah. Okay. So, um, I really don't have anything further other than you're going to provide me, or you've provided me with footage of your garage, right? The one I never made it to,
Yes. On
unfortunately.
the photo album, I've got all kinds of videos, and I've got videos of people saying exactly what I said, that it was fun to play. They hadn't played with persimmon in 30 years, something like that. All kinds of pictures from past events. Yeah, any of that. You've
Well,
got the kitchen sink there.
we're going to embed it into this video so that people can see and get to understand what it is what you're doing. And I think it's a noble cause. No, I mean, look, it's
Yeah, I
legitimate.
mean, honestly, it's one of those things, Ralph. Like, I can't tell you how many. Like, if I would be like the Bill Gates of like compliments, like people, like I can't tell you like how many unsolicited, cool things, like just out of the blue, people say like, "Hey, I'm really, this is a great thing you're doing." It's just, it's probably not, it's not going to be the next PayPal or Bitcoin
But you know what? You believe in it and you're doing it's a labor of love, right? So
Yeah,
it's
it
not
is.
work.
And I mean, golf is played a large part of my life, and kind of like trying to fight the war of ideas. And I feel very strongly that that these clubs, should not be, kind of have this long shadow over them that they do. Anything that I can do to, kind of highlight that fact, I, you know, will keep doing it as long as I have all this equipment, and what little expertise I have, dispense it is to anyone who asks.
There's two events I play up when I'm up in New York, and one of them is the Moles. The Moles is a construction or a big all the big contractors, and
Mhm.
they have that event in at Pelham Country Club.
Oh, sure.
And,
Classic course there, yeah.
yeah,
Played an event there.
then they have the event at Pelham Country Club. Then they have this antique everybody rolls in with their antique car. So they have
Okay,
the golf tournament at Pelham Country Club, then they go to the New York Athletic Club, right, which is actually that was Wingfoot.
sure.
They separated, and
Yep,
so we go New York Athletic Club for a barbecue and dinner, barbecue lunch and then a dinner, and everybody brings in all this retro, you know, cars, not these antique cars, and that would be a great place to introduce, the persimmon, and then the other event is the GCA, which is the General Contractors Association golf tournament, and that's played at Westchester Country Club on the South Course.
okay.
So it's played on
Yep.
this, Walter Travis designs a great golf course. I love the Little South.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
that's they had the Buick Classic
yeah.
there for forever. Yeah, hopefully one of these I'm friends with Ben Hoffine, the pro there, so hopefully he actually lives very close to the garage, so, one of these days I'll get him over there and hopefully that's like a perfect place for us. It's has a real relevancy to what I'm doing.
Yes, absolutely, and especially the South. Now, we're not playing the West Course is where the tournament was. That's still
Mhm.
a golf course, 6,800, I think, 68.
Yeah.
But the South Course is a little shorter, and it's actually I think it's a masterpiece, and that would be a great place to, I think, for that kind of stuff. But I think there's a lot of possibilities, right? Because there is a sense of novelty to doing this. People just experimenting with it. It's a new experience. It's something that you know doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go on and play, you know, that set forever. But
Yeah, no, it's not a black or white type of thing. I mean, that's the good part is that you can it's very there's not a massive financial commitment to,
right.
dabble, to dabble into the clubs. I mean, you're not going to, it's not like going out and spending $1,500 on a modern set, like I said, you can find this stuff. The sort of the only sort of challenge that I will say is that the frame of reference for the brands is a little bit challenging because, say, someone like easy example, which would be like Spalding. Spalding doesn't exist anymore. So, it would be like saying like TaylorMade doesn't exist like 40 years from now.
All things cease to exist.
Yeah, well, they're still there, but they're making golf balls for Callaway
Wait,
in
so
Chicago.
the sporting goods company?
That got sold off. Yeah.
Oh, they spun it off, and the Top Flight went to
Yep.
Callaway, and
Yep. They got kind of
Top Flight owned Hogan, and Callaway cleaned all their ball technology.
correct. Yeah, so there's a lot of brands like Walter Hagen or even Wilson's relatively minor player now, but I mean they were kind of king of the hill for irons for a very very long time.
They,
McGregor is kind of a small player now.
but those were big time sporting goods companies. So even if you are our vintage, right?
Yep.
Let's say you weren't a golfer as a kid, right? I mean, I played stoop ball, stick ball. Everything was a Spalding ball. Like
Yeah,
Spalding was
they were massive.
like Everlast was to boxing, you know,
Right.
and
Yeah, I mean they sponsored, they had Bobby Jones.
right. So you had Spalding basketballs, you had Wilson basketballs, you had Spalding football, you had a Wilson football, you had gloves, baseball gloves. It was wow. Well, I guess that's
Yeah, so there's a little bit of that where, that's where I can, essentially kind of point people in the right direction as far as what to look for, different models,
you also
things along that.
you have to also
Yeah.
to be able
Yeah,
to.
this stuff isn't necessarily top of mind for all that many
But
people.
the storyline behind it kind of adds to it. I think that when people understand that where it came from, why it was important, when it was used, who used it, and that kind of stuff adds to the experience. I think.
Yeah, I mean, even, all the vintage, Hogan models, and they were out of Texas, Spalding's out of Western Mass. Titleist is in Eastern Mass. Wilson was in Chicago. Northwestern used to be out of like Chicago as well.
Yeah, Northwestern is, I became friends with Nat Rosasco. So it was later on. And yeah, so yeah, I would say that, you're on to something. It's just a matter of how it evolves, how it evolves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to that end, the good news for me is that all the heavy lifting has been done. I keep the clubs and they're all in the garage. They don't, the amount of work that I did years past is not needed to essentially there's very, very little upkeep to keep things going. And, whether I do it 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, all this stuff is going to be just as relevant
Right.
then as it is to this day.
I think that, uh, well, you have a regular job, so it's not going to affect, it's not going to affect you.
Fortunately,
Having a real job helps, right?
it definitely does. It definitely does.
Yeah. So, it's going to be what it's going to
I'd
be.
be the proverbial starving artist if
Yes, you would.
it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Yeah. And I was in that environment, in a hairy environment. And Andy Warhol was out there back then. And Leo Castelli had those galleries in Manhattan. Yeah. So I'm from there. I'm from Soho. I'm from the Lower East Side. That's my stomping grounds. That's where I grew up. And
Yeah,
that's right.
I'll send you. I've got a photo album of the golf bag and of
Cool.
me and Angel, and yeah,
That's
it's
nice. That's a good
another
job.
rabbit hole that I've kind of gone down.
Well,
So it's a lot of fun.
it's a lot of fun. And that's what life's about. It's having fun and memories and all that good stuff. That's what I enjoy. Yeah. So Cory, it's been a pleasure. And like I said, we'll incorporate your videos so that people can see and get get an idea of what the magnitude of this thing.
I really appreciate that, and I mean, you've had some great people on, Larry Bobka recently,
Yeah.
Mike Manavian, I know well. It's an honor to, you've kind of, carved out this great niche with talking about some people that are doing some meaningful things in golf. And, I in my own sort of way, hope that I'm kind of doing something similar but different as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you look on the Instagram page, there's a bunch of guys in that era, and I put up a lot of the 50s swings and stuff like that, and
Yeah,
people
it's
seem to
it's
enjoy
just
it.
as relevant, I mean, hitting the center is a skill that any serious golfer needs to have.
Yep.
So,
All right. Well, thank you, Cory, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on. All righty.
yeah, I look forward to getting you over to the garage.
I'll get there this time. We'll make it there. Thank you.
Thanks.